Karen is running late, so we're just going to do what we do when she's running late. Hi, everybody. All right, so when we do our introduction, I'll go, I'm Dylan Schuck, and then Dan Fields, and then Mike Zakarian, and then I'll pretend to be Karen. If anybody notices a fourth person in here, sometimes we won't realize it. So
I love that you go live and then tell us how to do the introduction.
Most of our listeners are not on YouTube, so
real pro.
It's a smaller percentage of it.
But I like it. So
yeah, that's when we start planning. That's when we start planning ahead. Is once we go live. Yeah, if you watch us on YouTube, you definitely get the outtakes of the whole thing. All right, let's rock and roll. Hey, Shakita. Welcome to Better Talk Saul. I'm Dylan Schuck.
And I'm Dan Fields.
And I'm Mike Zakarian.
And I'm Karen Peterson. Karen, your voice sounds higher than normal. In this podcast, we're discussing the 11th episode of the final season of the AMC original series, Better Call Saul. You're listening to Better Talk Saul in this podcast. We're not pretending that Breaking Bad doesn't exist, so tread lightly if you're concerned about that show's spoilers. The most unnecessary disclaimer at the beginning of a podcast. It made more sense at the beginning of the show, but now it's just like it's a little ridiculous. Mike, thank you for coming on. We got a special guest.
Hey, thanks for having me. I feel like I've been talking to you about, or we've communicated about coming on at some point. So I'm glad to finally do it. And after this episode, I feel like this episode was wild.
This is a good episode for it.
Yeah,
that's what I was thinking. I was like, he got a good episode. I think 2 episodes ago would have been a pretty good one too. But in general,
they're all good. Every episode is good, baby.
That's the diplomatic thing to say. I appreciate that, Dan. I do. So Mike has his own YouTube. Actually, going on Mike's YouTube stream was how I discovered how easy it is to do. So if you want to plug it's a little different than talking about TV and movies, but
I know what you were saying, but I also love the idea of you're like, yeah, I went on Mike's show and I was like, this guy sucks. It's very easy to do what he's doing. We should do it that way.
That's exactly how I meant that. Exactly.
I know. We do over at Team Hold over on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. We do a daily show over there talking some hoops, talking some football occasionally in the Web3 world. We've been doing that
sometimes to talk about NFTs over there.
Sometimes
huge market for that over here.
Yeah, I'm sure the crossover is pretty strong.
That's a good one. JJL said I'm unsure exactly where I am, but people tell me I would love this show. 7th beer in hand, and this Mike. Yeah, see, Mike is bringing the people over here. He's giving the people what they want, which is talking about a show that he doesn't even watch. So that's amazing. All right, so Karen's being really quiet. I'm sure she'll start talking here in a couple minutes. She's just a little tongue-tied right now. Starstruck at meeting the Mike Zakarian. So I'm sure she'll start talking here pretty soon when she gets to her computer. But, okay, so I thought this episode was really good. I wonder if, and we talked about this. I was completely wrong in my predictions that we'd never see, what's his name again?
Jeffy?
Lenny? Wait, what's the guy's?
Yeah.
Dan, help me out.
Yeah.
Lenny. I thought we'd never see him again. I was wrong.
Yeah.
Dan has no problem admitting when he's wrong, so I have to admit that when I'm wrong. I just felt like that was wrapped up. But I think it was okay how it came through. Also showing how afraid he is of Saul in general.
Yeah, and it was Saul who went back to him to start the crimes again. I think Jeffrey.
We thought the opposite if he was going to come on. We thought he was going to start blackmailing him or something like that.
Yeah, no dice.
Yeah, that was tough. Like seeing that trajectory that Saul took in this episode because I feel like they took us down this path of like, oh wait, shit, he knows where Kim is. Like he knows how to get a hold of Kim. He's going to talk to Kim, almost being like, oh, we are going to find this like happy ending. And then that was almost like his Breaking Bad point where he like immediately almost like regressed back into almost like an addict, right? Like slipping up and relapsing and going right back into it. And And it was kind of a, I mean, I don't know. This is how broken I am, or not broken, but this is how we're like, oh, this will end nicely. Of course this will end nicely. It's like, no, it won't. In what world is anything that they've created going to end nicely? And that's exactly what started happening. I was like, oh yeah, of course it's going to go down this road.
Well, maybe they're doing a little misdirection, right? Like they want us to think that it's going to end badly, right? And it probably will, but I think that they want us to think it's going down the same path as Breaking Bad. This really feels like the end of Breaking Bad when it like did a time jump and it was kind of wrapping up all the loose ends. So I don't know. I don't have a prediction as far as how that's going to go. Do you guys think he actually talked to Kim?
So, yes, I do. And I think I think I read something this week after the episode that there was, if you watch this in German, or there was another language too, but German.
I didn't get to that rewatch. I didn't get to that.
I mean, I obviously didn't either. But if you watched it with subtitles, you can kind of get part of the conversation. And so I'm wondering if in a later episode, if we're going to get the other side of that conversation.
Oh yeah,
you know what I mean? Like if we get it from Kim's perspective.
So it said she works at a sprinkler store. The next episode is called Waterworks.
There you go.
Yeah, it'll get wrapped up. I read an interview with Peter Gould, and he did say as much. Like, yeah, you're gonna find out like what happened with that phone call.
So the only thing now, especially with the German thing, I think that this is definitely going to be incorrect. But I'll say it what I was going to say anyway. I feel like if he talked to Kim, it wouldn't have been anger; it would have been sorrow. So that's why it's a little surprising.
Sure.
I saw a lot of people comparing that scene in the phone booth to Goodfellas. When spoiler alert for Goodfellas, but when Robert De Niro's character finds out about Joe Pesci dying and the stakes that was for that, like they thought they were going to be made because Joe Pesci was, and Joe Pesci was Italian, so he's the only way that they could have. So when he finds out that he got killed, he like beats the phone in a similar way.
The way that scene wrapped up too, with him kicking the glass of like the phone booth, reminded me a little bit too of when he I forget what season it was, but remember when he like boots the trash bin in Howard's whatever
in the bathroom?
Yeah, and then Kim picks it up. And that's how that scene wraps up. And I wonder if there was a little bit of like, who's there to pick up the broken glass? You know, nobody know.
It's hard not to do that in the show and always be like, that was a reference to this. And the Bravo Vince meme.
Yeah.
But I got a question. Mike, have you watched the show from the beginning live as it aired on TV?
I watched the first season live and then watched 2 and 3 I had to catch up on. And then I fell behind after the first season. And then from the 4th season on, I've been live.
I just realized my mic was not hooked up, so I bet my sound sounds a lot better right now. But
you sound great.
I was gonna say, I wonder if I would have watched this show every episode live on TV if I wasn't doing a podcast for it the whole time, because I just don't do that with any show anymore. Like every single show now, I let episodes pile up so I can binge them. But then I also complain that every show is a binge show, so we can't watch them all together. But then I just I still want the freedom to be able to do it. Like before Barry came out, I watched the entire first 2 seasons, rewatched them, and I was like, now I'm going to be ready for Barry, and haven't seen a single episode of season 3 of Barry, just because I was now I'm going to let them pile up.
You got to watch that. It's a great season.
And it's not like Netflix. You don't have to wait long. Like you go watch them right. They're all done. You go watch it.
I know, but I just what happens if I haven't seen a show and I have no fire burning me to watch it? I'll just let it pile up.
Yeah.
You're so worried about spoilers too, Dylan. I'm surprised for certain shows. You are terrified of spoilers that you still kind of,
I have PTSD from spoilers. Absolutely. Yeah. I actually, for a long time, I don't watch the trailers for the next episode.
That's fair.
I went and saw the trailers for the previous. I was like, I want to see what this episode had. The trailers aren't showing anything for these. They're purposely not putting anything on the trailers for these episodes. If you haven't seen them, these trailers are showing nothing.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think Dylan, I think you just need to do more podcasts then. Like you need a Barry podcast, like any show that you're watching. I think you need to just create a podcast for, so you're doing it week to week.
Dan remembers those days. I think
people want it.
I had like 8 going at the same time, and my mental health was deteriorating. I canceled a bunch of them. Was like,
don't do that.
All right, so we'll get into the episode. Actually, the episode title, the irony is, it's called Breaking Bad, and Saul. I mean, I know everybody has already seen this everywhere on the internet, but Saul's first episode in Breaking Bad was called Better Call Saul, and
that's pretty fun.
Walt and Jesse's first episode of this was called Breaking Bad, which was, I think, a nice little bookend. But obviously, we've been teased about them coming on the show for a long time. And I know we usually try to go through scene by scene on these, but obviously, I feel like we just need to kind of jump into that, and then we'll ask Karen when she arrives. But I find it interesting that they hyped it up and it being a good scene and much better than with them in those caps on, so much better than El Camino. If anybody remembers El Camino, Walt had a terrible bald cap on and it was just freaking miserable. I couldn't stop thinking about it. So it was nice. Although when we first saw Jesse, I was like, oh man, he's definitely like almost 50.
I didn't want to step on, because I know you do the segment of like what was the funniest moment, and to me it was a 44-year-old Aaron Paul being like, "What's up, man? I'm 26," and it's like, "Nah, dude, no, you were not." That was the only thing.
It's like the Steve Buscemi, "How you doing, fellow kids?" Like completely. But after his first line, his like throat was all gruff, and that first scene, I was like, oh, this is going to be miserable. But then after a couple lines, it seemed like he got back into it. It was just like that opening one. Yeah. But I mean, this is a good question. Would have been better if we didn't know they were going to be on. I feel like they had to tell people they were coming on to try to gain some
buzz
and get people to share it online and talk about it. Although I think a lot of people that didn't like Better Call Saul are going to be disappointed by this if this is their only time in the show, which I'm assuming. I feel like they're going to be disappointed because it wasn't that. It was a good scene, but it wasn't like something.
Those people stick it around. Like
what?
At this point, if you only like Breaking Bad, you're still not watching this.
Right.
So I almost feel like this was a little what's the word I'm looking for? Like a nostalgic of them. Like I think they knew they wanted to put them in and not make it campy or weird. And then the way that they did, and sort of like then blame the entirety of Breaking Bad on Saul in a roundabout way. Like
that was kind of wild.
Like, yeah, that was great.
It's a little victim blaming going on.
Yeah.
Well,
they completely put the whole thing on him. Like completely put the whole thing on him, and I think that was an interesting decision to make.
Yeah.
Chuck told him, right? Every person you interact with, you destroy their life, and
right.
He sort of did.
Well,
he was right, but then also the irony is that he, in his actions, pushed Jimmy to the point of becoming Saul to make that happen. So he kind of intervened on that in his own right. What are you going to say, Mike?
No, it just kind of makes you like seeing that scene play out almost makes you rethink like every Jimmy interaction like we've had. Where it's like, oh, I always took it as like playful, like he likes to run scams, right? We're not hurting anybody. I'm going to get mine. But it's like playful, not innocent, but you know what I mean? Like no one's getting hurt here. And now like I'm kind of, everything's running back through my head. And it's like, oh, maybe that wasn't the case, right? Maybe that was like a justification he had, but seeing the way that scene played out, it just made me rethink that a little bit more.
Yeah, I definitely want to watch Breaking Bad again after watching this. That's for sure.
Yeah, I'm 100% going to when that is. I mean, I've watched it several times, but you can't have too much Breaking Bad.
Can I ask you guys a question? This is like sort of a prediction, maybe. Do we think Jesse is like still around in the Gene timeline?
He is.
He's in Alaska, though, right? Isn't that?
Yeah. I was just wondering, like, do we see Jesse again? I don't think we see Walt again in the last.
Oh, I see what you're asking.
Do we see Jesse again?
I don't.
No.
That would be so George Lucas of them. So
yeah,
maybe we're gonna find out Jesse was planning the whole thing all along.
What if it's R2D2 though? That shows Jesse. Like, what if it's something like
the
that?
Jesse's memory
The
was
map.
right
Yeah.
the whole time because he OD'd in the very beginning. That started the whole thing. No, but I would like for them not to, but I'm not going to be mad if they do. Like, they gave some answers in this episode to a lot of things that happened in the post Breaking Bad world, and some of them it's like I didn't want to know this, but I don't mind it. Like Huel.
Yeah. He's in
Huel
New Orleans.
particularly. What did you say?
He's in New Orleans. I'm glad that he got away. And Skylar got her deal. She's not.
Couldn't believe we heard Skylar's name. I did not see that coming. That wasn't in. I would not have bet on that. I thought I would never hear Skylar's name again.
But that seemed like it wasn't just like to make us like to give fan service. It was to create the stakes that are going on right now. The only person they have to bust now is Saul and Jesse. That's it. Yeah. So they were showing this person got away. This person, Huel had been given false pretense by Hank and Gomi, so he got off, and just like all roads lead back to Saul. Like he's like, if they didn't do that, we would have still been like, we were kind of confused. I mean, at least I was. I know a lot of people are gonna maybe disagree with this, but we felt like his paranoia didn't really make a ton of sense to me throughout those opening scenes, throughout all the episodes.
That's fair.
And this is a great, just in case anybody forgot, this is a reminder. The only person they have to prosecute about this is Jesse, who's in Alaska, and cops aren't going to fucking Alaska. It's too cold. So the only person they have to get really is Saul.
Well, I think they did a good job too with the Gene timeline just throughout the last couple of years of like sprinkling in some information, but it truly felt like a separate timeline of like, oh, this is what happened to Saul. This is his life now. And that conversation with, is it Francesca? Am I blanking on the? Yeah. With Francesca, like totally was like, oh yeah, remember all the damage you did? Like, this isn't just you playing like fun games and whatever, starting a new life and making Cinnabons and tricking security guards. Like now, like look at all, like everything's gone. All of the money that you had is gone. All of your relationships that you've had are gone. And this is like the damn. And even like Francesca's like, I don't want to talk to you. Like I'm only having this conversation because you're going to give me something.
She's like borderline really mean to him.
Yeah.
He ruined her life.
Yeah.
I mean,
but she was like mean to him before that.
Because I think she was always mad that she couldn't work for Kim. She loved working for Kim.
Yeah.
And she got stuck with Jimmy instead.
But she's like really like, they didn't show like one big thing happening. I think she never got over getting laid off when he lost his law license for a year.
Right.
She was pretty pissed about not keeping her job, but she's like still held a grudge. And she's like, by the way, you shouldn't have laid me off. While she's like hiding out from the police. She's still upset about that. But in general, I think kind of tying up all the loose ends. In general, I think that it's cool to see something open like Huel left alone in the safe house. I think we kind of figured that he was okay.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Right?
And
he deserved that though, because he was a part of Better Call Saul. So better. Yeah. So it was nice to hear him. The Bill Burr character, sure. Like she was just like, I don't know. Do you have the internet where you're at? Like he didn't get his fortune told in the show, but Huel deserved a happy ending. He may be the only one that gets one.
We see who's in the chat, right?
Oh,
we got John for Council.
John for Council
in the chat.
And he's right. John's making a point that it's nice to watch a show with sort of like the shared consciousness of the world. And
completely agree.
I mean,
that's what I was always complaining. Like after Game of Thrones ended, I was like, "This is the end. This is the end of us all watching a show together." I talked about that on the podcast with you. Shout out to the Game of Thrones podcast. Yeah. That felt like kind of the end. While everything was going towards streaming platforms and binge watching. I do agree that it is better to watch it together, but like I'm not trained to do that anymore. Like I'm trained to binge everything now. So I don't mean to, but it's just like kind of exhausting in your day-to-day life to watch an episode for 45 minutes
and then leave it and then come back and leave it when it is
so exhausting.
My brain wise, my
It's
attention span
Yeah, it's so hard.
better.
I would rather watch 8 straight hours of television instead of 45 minutes at a time. Wait, but you don't do that with any HBO shows at all? Like, I feel like I still, whatever like the Sunday night show is, like when Mayor of Easttown was on, that was like every Sunday night, or you know what, honestly, it was like every Monday. I feel like I was watching it, but that was like a week-to-week check-in. But I will say, like, it wasn't your podcast necessarily, but podcasts in general keep me watching stuff week to week.
Yeah.
Like if there's this one, like The Watch with Andy Greenwald and Chris Ryan, I really like that one. And whatever they're watching week to week, I'm like, all right, yeah, I guess I got to do that.
Yeah, I think also we started podcasting. Dan and I started with The Walking Dead, and that was in 2014. So and then we were doing a bunch of shows, right? So once it started becoming like that, it just also made it seem like work to me. So that's like an effect that happened. But anyway, let's get into the episode. Francesca, we also see in the past, in the current day. Black and white always feels like the past, but black and white's the future in this world. But she just can't get a job that she doesn't freaking hate, and she has to insult these tenants while she's doing that.
Because they're putting weed down the sink. Who does that? That's absolute idiot move.
If you can't find a lighter,
I love this.
I
love this development of you just like hating Francesca. Like I didn't think that would be a narrative of today's conversation, but I love that that's where we
what's
landed.
your problem?
She's mean-spirited.
She's unhappy. She's a slumlord for a couple burnouts, and I don't know. She's not a paralegal, which she mentioned, but she probably could have been and would have been, and she got a lot of anger. She needs to let go. She needs to meditate.
So did Saul? Maybe I missed something, and maybe somebody can help me on the chat if one of my two great co-hosts right here don't have it. Did Saul leave a one-time bag of money there? I think when we last saw them talk, right, when in Breaking Bad, I'm sorry, in Better Call Saul, like in the middle of season 4 or something like that, it showed randomly an episode where he was packing all his stuff frantically, and then he gave her instructions on how to make this phone call and where the cash was going to be. So I guess I just kind of put that all together right now, because I was like, is he ever going to meet her again or talk to her again, or no? But this is a one-time thing where he just wanted to be able to check in one time, and then he has no information. And then she's so mean. She hung up on him. We can't have that, guys. You can't hang up on people like that. Fuck Francesca. That's all I'm going to say.
I don't know if it was going to be a one-time thing, but I think once he learned like everything was gone, right? Because I think that was revealing to him that everything was gone. So right. I don't know if he was like, oh, I'll find other ways to pay or whatever, but that was like in case of emergency, this is all I got left.
Yeah, when she said the thing about not having, do you have the internet or whatever? Also, he might not want to be searching on the internet because it might be some red flags or something like that. I don't know. Maybe a lot of people, if it's a national story, maybe a lot of people are searching it. So, but I don't know.
She also drove by the spot where he got picked up, like the vacuum spot, that was like that interesting leveled, I don't know, area. And I told that to my wife when we were watching it, and she was pissed off at me. She's like, I'm glad you can remember that. Like, you watched that show like 5 years ago and you remember that. And I said, I do a podcast about it. I'm sorry. When I watch the show, I watch it very intently, and I recognize. But
your wife like gets mad when you catch anything on the show.
She gets she's just mad because I talk during the show. She's like, this isn't a podcast. Shut up. She's right.
She just gets a constant podcast from you at all times.
Yeah, 24 hours a day. She's married.
Shout out to the sponsors every now and then too, when you're just hanging
Liquid
out.
Death. I'm pounding Liquid Death.
And I also I do want to give a shout out to Bill Oakley, the Petty and the Prior guy, the defense attorney, who has now taken the Saul moniker in Albuquerque. I thought that was a nice
touch.
Little thing on the bus stop.
Mm-hmm. And now he's a defense attorney too. So I like when he was like, he switched teams and Jimmy was
Remember
like,
that's saying he was jealous. He was jealous of Saul making a bunch of money, and we see that he's got a happy ending, which was what everybody was riveted for.
oh yeah, big time.
Yeah, so we can see Skylar took a plea deal. Huel returned to New Orleans, and Bill Oakley has become a defense attorney. Also, I read somewhere that they said Mark Prokovich, his character, the guy with the baseball cards,
Yeah,
he was running the laser tag throughout all of Breaking Bad. So he was the guy named Danny who was running laser tag.
Oh, all right.
oh that's cool.
So I thought that was a nice, funny little thing to tie in together. Finally, she divulges, by the way, we're using Breaking Bad Wiki. Shout out to the Breaking Bad Wiki that I'm reading here. They do great work, and I completely plagiarize it for the podcast. So shout outs to them. Finally, she divulges that Kim called to check on her and after everything went down. And she asked about Gene as well. Gene is it says she asked about Gene as well. Like she was asking, I don't think she asked about Gene by name. I'm sure she asked about Jimmy, but he's affected by that last bit. He tries to bid her goodbye and she hangs up on him. So I feel like he's like brightened by the idea that she still cares about him.
Yeah, that was my read on it.
I wonder if we're going to get any bit of where she was during Breaking Bad. What I would really love is the next episode just be Kim. And
that would be so good.
Fills in the blanks from when she left him to the phone call, and it ends with that phone call. That would be so awesome. I would really
love that.
if that's what happens.
Yeah, that'd be neat. Because you said it's waterworks, and she works for a sprinkler place in Florida. I mean, not what I was expecting. That's for sure.
Oakley.
Yeah, this is actually that was my prediction. Yeah, sorry, I stepped on that. Say it again, Dylan.
What were you saying, Dan? Sorry?
Robert in the chat said that Bill Oakley is going to defend Saul in court, and that was one of my. I just feel like this show doesn't show things like that.
Yeah,
and
I don't
there's
think
a website.
We have time for court.
Yeah, you're right.
On the show anymore.
Right.
Unless that's in another one of their like infamous montages. Like if we see that as like a closing thing, I could see that.
But how do you show like a trial on a montage?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess we could like just show like jurors and the camera pans by while they're sworn in and stuff like that.
Yeah, there you go. You did it.
I feel like that's a pretty uncool montage, but it'd be gonna make it cool.
Well, it's gonna be more. There's gonna be more to it. I was thinking this like almost the Wire-esque finale where we're seeing a bunch of different things happening, and one of them being Oakley and Saul.
Now that wouldn't be that bad, right? To see him randomly just as the camera pans by defending him. Yeah, I wouldn't hate on that. But if there's like this scene, Your Honor, I'm like, dude, we don't need this right now. We don't need any more court scenes on the show.
I mean, it's crazy. We don't even have enough time, right? Like you were saying, it's like we get 2 episodes left, so I don't.
But then again, like you think about the last 2 episodes of Breaking Bad, man, they covered a lot in those 2 episodes. So
I read the last episode of this show is 8 hours, so it's actually like its own season in one.
Oh, it's like okay, that actually makes a lot of sense. That actually makes me a lot more excited.
Could you imagine?
Oh, so John, here's what I'll say, John for counsel. You speak in absolutes a little bit too often because you start off. There's no way Kim was on the phone call. Did you watch it in German, my friend?
I don't think John was on. John didn't hear that part of the podcast.
So I went into this saying I don't think so, but you can't speak in absolutes like this, John. You're setting yourself up. Yourself up.
So that was my first thought when I watched it was that he was finding out that she was dead. That like on the he was calling, he's like, "Can I speak to Kim Wexler?" And what he's hearing on the other line is someone being like, "Oh my God, I can't believe you didn't know this. Kim Wexler died." But I was like, what a anticlimactic way to tell us that Kim was dead. So there's no way that's what it is, and especially if you haven't checked out the German, which I highly recommend.
You got to watch it in German, John for counsel. You got to. But I was just gonna say I had a different read on that wasn't nearly as morbid as Mike's. I thought she just didn't take his phone call.
Oh,
so I thought that was the reaction. But I guess everybody deals with their emotions differently.
Or maybe remarried. He was like, "Oh, Kim Wexler. Oh, you mean Kim Carpenter?"
Yeah, and you're also assuming this is the first time they've talked. Maybe It's not.
Yeah.
And
I don't think
he
it is.
thought, yeah.
I feel like that would be kind of weird if they just left it at that and didn't talk until that phone call. But anything's open because we don't speak in absolutes here, John for counsel. We don't speak in absolutes. Only a Sith speak in absolutes. So yeah, the call ends with Gene slamming the phone and kicking the glass. We can kind of talk about. I think it was good when he showed up at Lenny's house, and he really didn't put that much care.
buddy.
Jeffy's
I'm calling him
house.
Jeffy, like his
Thank
mom.
you, Dan.
Yeah,
really
you're
appreciate
welcome.
that. Was he didn't put that care. He showed her some cat videos. Then he like didn't keep the front up for very long because he was like, we got to do this. And I think it's showing him kind of not caring as much. And I think obviously that's an important thing about him. Showing breaking the fucking glass at the end of the episode as well, which kind of defeats the purpose of the whole thing that they've done in the first place, as far as that goes.
Yeah, I think. What about too? Like, speaking of montages, do you remember? So when Kim and when Kim and him split, he goes through like a bunch of prostitutes, right? Like that, we get a montage of that, and then we see that again in this episode, right? In a similar type montage too. Like after that phone call, and he like breaks bad, if you will, then starts going through a bunch of prostitutes again.
Yeah, no Nutri-Grain bars this time though.
No Nutri-Grain bars.
Yeah, just it's showing him this despondence, right? Like him conflating happiness and pleasure, where he's getting all the pleasure that he could get, but he's not happy, and whatever he's trying to get at with this, it's not making him happy. It's not making him feel fulfilled.
Well, and that was one of the things about this episode that bummed me out quite a bit. I can't remember the last time we've seen Saul by himself as much as we did this time. And it just kind of like drove home how lonely this guy is. Like how, like he, he was watching exercise videos, I think, for a little bit. We see him listening to the police radio, like the police chatter. Like there's just a very sad existence at that time.
Yeah, and just like you said, again, an addict relapsing, he went and had one drink with Jeffy, not Lenny, with Jeffy. Who's named Jeffy, by the way? That's a weird name.
That's what his mom calls him.
She goes and has one drink, basically, and I mean that figuratively, with him, and then he relapses completely, right? He like falls right back into it. He can't really help because he's like, for him, it's like, what else? What am I hiding out for? This loneliness, right? This despair.
Well, the act of those scams too that he runs was basically like the crux of the relationship that he had with Kim, anyways, right? Like that was the thing. Like we barely saw any
Victor. He's using the name Victor, what he did with Giselle,
right? Because we barely saw any like intimate moments between the two of them throughout their relationship. Like their love we saw come together in like these heists and scams and stuff. And I think
we didn't see a lot of affection between them. We saw intimacy, but like not affection, right? Like we saw them their way of being intimate. Like I think that last episode was the first time that we heard them say "I love you" to each other.
Yeah,
and then these scams, obviously, right off the bat, they show guys being a complete asshole right off the bat. And movies and shows do that all the time. They're doing something to some guy, but they show the guy being an asshole so the audience doesn't think we're being bad. But then it slowly like went to not as big of an asshole than a guy who's like a legitimately kind guy.
Hey, real quick, did that first guy look familiar to you?
He did. But I don't know
He's Buzz from Home Alone. He's Kevin McAllister's older brother.
100%. 100%.
I didn't realize that.
Wait, which guy's Buzz?
The first guy
the big dude with the beard. The guy who kept conning him and tricking him with like his silly.
No kidding.
Yeah, Buzz from Home Alone.
Wow.
Yeah.
John for Counsel said the timeline is just 5 weeks from the end of Breaking Bad. Remember, Beaver drove Jesse's car to the border, and I guess that's from El Camino. So he's only been here for 5 weeks.
Okay.
I mean, you
in
can be lonely for
Nebraska?
5 weeks, guys. I think
I thought he's been here for a year. That's
that's
not
what I
true.
thought too. But
Yeah,
we
that's wrong.
discuss the timeline so much, and we make mistakes. Then we get the answer, and then we
No.
still just remember whatever the mistake was. Like it gets convoluted.
The one thing I was gonna say, since you're going through these, Mike had a good point, is how lonely that Saul is, but all these cons are very relationship based. Like he's doing this thing where he's like dating a man at the bar, befriending him, getting in his head. Like that's not easy to do. Like these scams are so much more personal, and I feel like they're having a toll probably on him too. It's not like he's just calling people. He's one by one, like manipulating these men.
I mean, we had to think that he was gonna have a change of heart with a guy with cancer, right? And he ended up being more resolute than ever.
Well, but I think that's why the flashback to that scene with Walt and Jesse was so, I think, impactful, and I didn't recognize it in the moment until at the end of the episode where I was like, oh yeah, he's like, because what was the line he says to Jeffy and the other dude who I don't, Buddy, Lucky, Buddy, I think it's Buddy, where he says something where it's of the lines of like, yeah, you don't know, like guys with cancer can suck too, is essentially what he said, right? And that's because he was like, well, yeah, I met a guy with cancer.
Right.
Right.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
Yeah.
But then like they bring also also when he's in the car with Jeffy is like looking back in fear of him, complete juxtaposition to when he first met him and he was fucking with him. And this is after a guy has been sitting there slipping water bottles to people that make them pass out, which reminds me, like, that's unsafe to take a water bottle back from somebody like that.
Oh my
especially
God,
if it's already open. So that's why we here at Better Talk Saul, we're all about drinking Liquid Death. It's sealed in a can. Nobody can drug it. Shout out to Liquid Death, the sponsor of the podcast. Use promo code BetterTalkSaul at any convenience store that they sell Liquid Death at, and you'll get 15% off your first can.
Oh, you just say it at checkout.
You say it at any convenience store.
That's nice.
15% off, but only if it's your first can.
Yeah.
They'll know if it's not your first can. So shout out to Liquid Death. Use that.
The louder you yell, the more percentage off you get too. So just really get in there.
That's
Get
nice.
crazy.
I heard that somebody screamed and got 75% off their first can.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
shout out to Liquid Death. Thank you for sponsoring us at every single convenience store. We're joking. We're not sponsored by Liquid Death. I want to make sure to say that too. So anyway, and then, that they're not just going and stealing some jewels. They're taking the person's entire identity.
Yeah.
It's fucked up.
But they're not doing anything with that. They're just selling it to shady characters, which I love that somehow Saul knows where to do that in this new town. Like he's got the guy already to sell this dossier, but whatever.
I wonder if Jeffy knew that guy because he's a serial philanderer.
Maybe.
Well, I'm trying to figure out, like, I know this gets into predictions, but like, is Carol Burnett, Jeffy's mom, so aware of Jeffy's past that, like, is this how Saul gets exposed, do we think?
That's my prediction.
Was it? All right, I didn't mean to say
that. Yeah, that's what it is. No, please. But yeah, my head's in the same exact spot. There's a lot of foreshadowing with like, I think it's going to be the computer. She's got this new computer. She's going to somehow find something on the internet.
That's a really good prediction.
Yeah, no, not just cats.
She's going to stumble upon it, and it's, I think that's a good prediction.
The camera's just hanging on her a little too long.
This is where we always get confusion with Breaking Bad. So this is why we always run into it, because we forget there's a 6-month time jump. At least before the last 2 episodes of Breaking Bad. So that means Gene's been here for at least 6, 7, maybe 8 months. So he's been there much longer than 5 weeks.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, just think how long it takes to con each and every one of those people. Like if he was doing he's going on like 4 dates a week at the same bar. Like I don't think so.
Right, he spent like a month at least conning the mall heist. So now I think it's safe to say that he's been here for a year.
25 years.
Point. I think we're going to go out on a limb and say that. Thank you guys for helping out. Generally, we stream these on YouTube, guys. If you want to follow us, go to our Twitter at BetterTalkSaul. and you can join along in the conversation. We usually go about 7 p.m. on Wednesday nights Pacific Standard Time. But generally, the purpose of the chat is just to help us out on timeline issues when we start screwing those up. That's what really solves that. So let's talk about the we already talked about it a little bit, but the Walter White and Jesse Pinkman scene. I like that Saul is fearless when talking to them. He really is so used to talking to criminals because of that's what he does all the time. And he just has balls, right? He's not, he knows how to communicate with them. Just like when he talked to old people, he knew how to communicate with them.
He's not at first. I mean, once he realizes he's not going to get killed, I mean, when he's like duct tape and flopping around on the bottom of the RV, he's freaking out. And he's like, anywhere but the desert. I mean, he's really freaking out. But yes, once he realizes like, oh, I can use this to my advantage, then he flips it on pretty quick.
Sorry, go ahead.
You go, Mike.
No, I was just gonna say, man, like Bob Odenkirk, and this isn't a brand new take or anything. Like, what an incredible acting job in that episode, because like that's a different Saul than what this show's been for the most part, right? Like that Saul in that trail, in that RV is like a different guy. Like he almost, he's a little bit younger. He's like got a little bit more testosterone running through him, I think, in those moments, and he's like carries himself differently. And then to think about like the Saul with Kim, and then the fact that he's playing Gene too, like he's playing like 4 different characters in one episode, and not like comedy sketch show characters where you just like put on a tie and you're a different person now. Like the nuance and subtlety in that, just
right,
like pretty
after
impressive.
Flatlining with a heart attack.
Right. Yeah. Like in real life heart attack.
Yeah. So
Mike, I read
did it feel to you guys the interior set from inside that RV was purposely shown way bigger than it was ever shown on Breaking Bad? Like it seemed
you can't worry about that kind of stuff.
And it always felt claustrophobic when they showed it on Breaking Bad. And I'm just like, I couldn't wrap my head around it. I was like, whoa, this is huge. It looks so spacious. And it was always shown much more crammed and claustrophobic on Breaking Bad. And while, maybe doesn't mean anything, maybe Bravo events, whatever, but that was on purpose. It was like a huge decision because it was like the set was bigger than the inside of an RV. It looked like, my brain was going to it showing the world of possibilities that were available. It looked bigger inside there as opposed to when they had the RV, it looked really small and cramped because it was supposed to have this kind of ghetto feeling to it. Whereas Saul looks at it as this open world, like his mind was opening up. It was a bigger thing to him. He was looking at it positively, where Walter and Jesse were looking at it negatively.
Wow. I didn't get there. I love that though.
Yeah.
But I don't know. Just like decisions are done on purpose, and I don't really have the Bravo events for that one, but it did look massive inside. Like if you go back, especially after I see this, go back and watch that scene, and it just looks really big inside. It's we've seen that RV a bunch of times in Breaking Bad. It never looked big like that on the inside. So that's all what I was thinking about that. But I also
real quick, Dylan, before we move on from this, something you said, Mike, about all these characters that he's playing. In this interview I read with Peter Gold, he mentioned that exactly what you said. Like it's incredible that he's played all these, and there's actually probably one more that we kind of haven't even seen. And I feel like it's the Gene that Jeff saw in the rear view, where he was like scared of him, like this guy who's breaking into houses with his hand, like the one that's like kind of crazy now.
That's what I'm saying. This isn't going to end well.
No.
So just so everybody knows, Karen is not able to come. She told me she's not going to be able to come, but she was trying to. So that's why I introduced her awkwardly at the beginning, and that she's just not going to show up. She can't make it. So Mike is the new Karen on the podcast. So
wouldn't it be the first time?
That's the first time that he's replaced Karen in any situation.
Karen, or not just a Karen. A Karen.
So then, this I love how he's like, Waltus thinks he's being smart. He's like, we stop telling him information. We got to stop. And he's like, it's not like he's an idiot. Like he sees the stuff, yo. And it's just a fun interaction between them. I think the fact that they were able to wear, again, I know I said that already, but able to wear their masks in their heads helped hide the massive amount of time that's happened in between it. But, luckily Bryan Cranston was already old when he started the show, so it's not difficult. But have you guys seen these pictures from him recently?
With his big beard.
Yeah, huge beard.
Oh, I haven't seen it.
They did a statue in Albuquerque, and they had the whole cast there because, let's face it, Breaking Bad put fucking Albuquerque on the map. Bugs Bunny was the only person that had ever mentioned freaking Albuquerque before, and now they're like, it's puts them on the map completely. So it's been huge. Lots of jobs are given in Albuquerque and everything like that.
That's a big old beard.
Oh, you're seeing the picture right now?
I just looked it up. Yeah, some Dave Letterman after the show vibes.
Yeah.
What role he's got?
Can you put it up on the screen?
Yeah, hold on. Let me see.
Even though the great listeners at home won't be able to see it, but we'll at least I'd like to take a look at it. Here we go.
Oh, ads.
Nope.
There we go. I think you gotta add it.
There we go. Perfect.
Dang.
That's not the most flattering of pictures.
It's crazy.
But
good for him.
This must be for a role. I like this. This is on GQ also. But
I'm just looking at your tabs, hoping you got something weird up.
No, nothing weird. I've got some viewership over here. Got some viewership. Yeah. There you go. My email.
We all know Dan's all about the tabs, tabbing it out.
That's tabbing it out.
Tab it out.
That's an old school reference there, buddy.
Anyway, the purpose of this is obviously to show that when we first see Mike, hilarious to see Mike in there. Mike is such a funny type of grumpy.
Yeah.
And to see him being like, dude, like, this isn't worth it. And he was right. Like, if they had just listened to Mike.
That's how Mike was introduced to us in Breaking Bad too, right? With those glasses on too, right? Isn't that like the first time we see him?
His introduction on Breaking Bad is to clean up Jane's death.
That's right.
Mm.
And he's wearing those glasses in it. So glasses Mike is back.
He's a PI.
Glasses Mike.
I felt like that scene though. Like, remember there was a time a few episodes ago where Kim could have stopped with Howard, and Jimmy tried to make her stop, and she didn't, which of course led to Howard dying, their relationship ending. And I felt like this was kind of that moment where Mike was like, "Leave it, leave Walt alone." And if he had, the whole thing could have been differently, but it was another moment where they just got greedy and pushed it too far.
Who are the 4 different characters we're saying here that Saul is playing? One is Saul, Jimmy,
Saul, Gene, but then he also had to play
Victor.
young Saul, or I don't know if it's young Saul, but you know what I'm saying? Like, he's playing the Saul that we know, but also playing the Saul in that in the Breaking Bad Saul.
Gene also, we see him play a kind of a new character. We've never seen that darkness.
Victor.
He's almost like Victor. That's the 4th character. But also you almost see him being Walter White.
Yeah, that is the vibe you get, right?
It seems like he learned from Heisenberg and he's kind of taken into that, but it never shows that he hates. Well, I know he doesn't like Walt by the end, but it never shows that he's right now pissed off. Perhaps showing a news ad, and it showing a news program with with Walter White on the screen, and then showing him crushing a can of liquid death. But it's to show that he's angry at Walter White. It's not showing that he's really angry with him.
I think that's okay.
You know what though? I and this reminds me of something that I thought about the Walter White and Jesse scene too. I think it's just not about them. You know what I mean? Because I even noticed in that scene, it was nice seeing Walter White again and Jesse, but it felt like it was Saul's scene. Do you know what I mean? Like
No, for
obviously
sure.
it's his show, but it felt like it was his scene, which I think is different than any other time we've seen those characters interact. And so like even to think about like how he feels about Walter, I don't even know if that matters. I mean, I guess it does a little bit, but like I don't think this is like more about his journey.
I just think like we've talked about this in the show before, but if you go back and rewatch, if you're watching this start off with Better Call Saul, and then you watch Breaking Bad afterward, Walter White is this massive villain that pops up in the middle of the fucking story and just creates complete havoc on all of the characters, leaves everything in the dust, completely destroys everything. And it doesn't show that it shows that he's regretting his decision. Doesn't seem like he has much resentment toward him. Maybe that's not the point, right? Because maybe that's not that interesting, but when you see him sitting here while everybody's at the strip club and he's in the back, not smiling, not enjoying it himself, it reminds me of the scene of Walter White when they're discussing what they're going to do with everybody in the prison, all of Gus's guys that were paid off, all of Mike's guys that were paid off after they killed Mike. And then he was just like, he can be killed. They can be killed. It's just about if you're the right person to do it or how much money it's going to cost me. And everyone's kind of like, whoa, this guy's chilling. It kind of reminds me of that from Breaking Bad, where he's kind of taken on this heartless persona. When he's sitting there talking about ripping off the guy with cancer, he's
definitely unhappy.
The guy's right. What does it matter? What does this one guy matter? Even if it did, I already pulled the tape, so there's no way to do it. And he goes and does it and breaks the glass like he wants to be caught. You know, they say there's murderers or whatever that get the best night of their sleep the night after when they finally confess to the cop because it's been eating away at them for so long. So I don't know if they're playing around with that or whatever. If
Pretty
he wants to be doesn't seem like he wants to be hiding out in Nebraska anymore.
Well, they make us think he's trying to maybe get money or if he's just doing these cons for the love of the con, but you don't want to get caught. And you're right. Like, it seems like he's throwing caution to the wind here with this last one. That's for sure.
Yeah, he's too smart for that breaking glass and breaking in and Breaking Bad.
There you go.
Dude. Yeah.
And then, I also really like the massage. We see him donning the Saul persona as Gene. We see him put on the ring. We see him use the massage chair. We see a lot of things that he is kind of bringing back because he misses that lifestyle and he's adopting it and he's kind of throwing caution to the wind, like we already said. Oh, using the earpiece too, the Bluetooth earpiece.
Bluetooth thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Those shitty,
those are cool.
Early 2010s, late 2000s Motorola headsets. Those did not work well. Did not work as well as they appear in the movies.
No, I never had one of those, man. Those were not cool.
I
did. You had one of those, Dylan? Yeah,
you
exactly.
Never had a Bluetooth headset, Dan?
Fuck no.
Fucking
those
Dan,
things were so dorky.
How have you always been so cool, dude? How have
I'm
you
not
always
cool.
been this cool?
But just like, come on, man. Those were not cool even for a minute.
This is the thing. This is the best place to use Bluetooth headsets back then is when you're walking around in public. It was great because then everybody could hear how important you were. Secondly, in your car or the dentist. If the dentist was a good place. I use one in the car because
it's a pro Bluetooth podcast. Or we get another sponsorship deal coming down the pipeline.
Funny you say that because we're brought to you by the Motorola H7 earbud.
Oh my god.
Incredible.
And then the final scene, or in 2010, after settling to watch TV, Gene receives a call on his own phone call, a frantic Jeff. They reconvene in the garage, which is seen by Carol Burnett in her bedroom. So you're totally right. That's a good prediction. She is going to be thrown aside, but we'll see how that goes. He says he can't do it.
By the way, too, real fast, remember the first episode, our first interaction with her is she's not very nice. She was actually pretty rude to everybody. And then I think when she finds out that Jimmy's been lying to her, she's going to be furious. She's going to probably blame all this stuff on him, not a Jeffy, no way. And maybe go to the police even, who knows? Like that scene of the cops.
Sorry,
Go ahead. No, please. Go.
No, I was gonna say it could even be as simple as like not her finding everything out, but it's been brought to our attention a couple of times, right? That she's like, Jeffy used to run in a bad group. We need to make sure we keep him away from that. So maybe she's just like, something's off about this guy. Don't get my Jeffy in trouble. And then all of a sudden, the house
She's
of cards
getting
falls.
bad vibes from for sure. But
Yeah.
that computer. I
that's
think
a good
you
call.
connected some good dots. I don't like to give you.
I know you hate to tell me I'm right. And you'll love to tell me if I'm wrong, but thank you. I'll take it.
Yeah, I clipped you wrong with the Howard thing. I shared that a lot. But that wasn't even because of Howard's death. You predicted incorrectly, but it was because the Liquid Death commercial that was in the middle of that. I'll show you what I'm talking about, Mike, after we're recording. I'll send it to you. So anyway, he quickly enlists Jeff to drive him to Mark's house, and as he exits the cabs, there's a brief scene of Saul entering that high school, and that's like the beginning of the end for Saul, where I feel like this is the beginning of the end for Gene, but he doesn't like being Gene, so I don't really think that it matters that much. I mean, you can't like making those Cinnabons, but and then it shows him end the episode with him breaking through a glass panel to unlock the Mark's front door.
It's a pretty heavy-handed cut there. I feel like the show isn't usually that literal with its like, here he is walking into school to ruin his life, and here he is breaking into a home to ruin his life. Like, it's usually not that cut and dry, but
I also feel like they normally don't leave us with cliffhangers. And that was kind of a cliffhanger of him walking or breaking into the house.
They did like, I feel like when we're winding down to the end, right? The cliffhanger for what's it called? Granite State, the penultimate episode of Breaking Bad, where he like called in to the police, and then he left the phone hanging at the very end of Breaking Bad, and it shows the phone swinging, and then it plays the Breaking Bad theme. It reminds me of that. It shows him kind of almost alerting the police to his presence, and I don't know.
Yeah.
I think this is an interesting question, and shout out to Karen Peterson in the chat. Apologize for not making it. It's okay. We rock and roll without you, but we'll be happy to have you back next week, Karen. Obviously, if Jimmy owned all the properties he's willing to sell to Walter White, was that a scam?
Did he sell them to him? Whose name? I guess they were in.
Give us some more context for the question, John, for counsel.
I don't remember.
Nail salons and laser tag.
So I think what he's saying is, all the things for money laundering that he got him to do, he was selling himself, or he was selling that they belonged to him. But that could have just been stuff he had laying around for whenever he needed to launder money, and then he was like, "Hey, I'll just sell this to you," because he was probably laundering some pocket change through it. But might be a good question there. Yeah. Let's get into the segment, shall we?
Yeah.
All right, our segments, we go over our favorite parts of the episode. Let's get to the first one, which is the worst decision of the week.
Ladies and gentlemen, the worst decision of the week.
Oh, you can unmute it. I just learned that. That's useful. That's very useful, because we'd have to wait till the whole thing ends. I didn't see it. I could personally unmute it. All right, so worst decision of the week. I'm going to go first because it's easy. It seems like it's breaking that glass at the end. So I'm going to go first so I can steal that real quick. I'm going to go with stealing the glass at the end. Dan, why don't you go second on worst decision of the week?
That's it. Just in general, just going to that guy's house, not just letting that one go. Also, the buddy, I think he called him. I don't know if that was really his name. That guy, maybe he'll come back around too. Him sort of like just firing him and kind of being rude to him. Like maybe that could end up being a bad decision too.
The guy is a well-behaved dog. Very well-behaved dog.
Oh, I keep waiting for why that matters. Like, we've seen the dog's just been around. It's been around and involved. That owner is a bad owner. It's getting that dog into sticky situations. I don't think the dog should be implicated. I don't like it.
But he trained the dog really well, so I can't necessarily.
That's what I took it as. The dog is his watch out. Like when the dog sees someone coming, he'll bark. He always leaves him at the front door. So I think that's what the dog is there for.
Yeah. All right, you guys said the obvious ones. I'm just gonna say making Carol Burnett suspicious. I think that's his way. He should have played his hand a little bit more coolly when he was like, "We'll take our drinks to go."
When the worst decision kind of plays into the prediction of the week, you know you're doing it right. Worst decision firing Buddy. He was a pro. I mean, he had a great dog too, man. I am definitely with you on that one.
Dog.
What about schnapps? I feel like I never drink just schnapps. Not even on the rocks. Like that's bold.
Yeah,
old
that's
lady move.
Yeah,
when I was a kid, and that's all he could have. But that's all you could
schnapps?
find. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's get the next one. It's the best line of the week.
Best line of the week.
All right. I queued up, which actually, which I thought was a really nice, maybe heavy-handed, but they're being a little heavy-handed in this. It's okay. Where when talking about Walter White to Mike, Saul says, guy with the mustache, probably not making a lot of solid life choices. And then we see Gene with the mustache making not solid life choices.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go with that. Best line.
That was literally mine. It's also
what
No
I had?
way.
Yeah, I swear to God, that was great.
Especially
How do you feel about all that
I'm glad I went
mustache
first because I
slander?
have the mustache and I'm
I
not
was gonna
making
say,
a lot of
how do you feel hearing that, Dylan? You have a mustache. Does that make you feel bad?
If you go career mustache like I've been for so long, you're willing to accept some comments about mustaches sometimes.
That's fair.
You just get over it.
Dan.
You know which one I really liked I wrote down is, which I thought you were going to say when you were talking about Mike, is when Mike goes in there to Jimmy and he's talking about Walt and he's like, if even if he's going to live, don't go near this guy. He's a complete amateur. And I liked that Jonathan Banks is so great, that actor, that almost like when you find a new band and you're like, I got to listen to all their old shit. Like, I've never seen that guy in another show. And now I want to like look him up. And like, maybe when he was young, was he great? I'm sure he was in like Goodfellas or Godfather or something weird. But I
might be making this up. I feel like he was a stage actor.
Really?
Yeah, but now I feel like I'm making it up. So I will fact check.
I think I heard that too, but
from me right now.
I don't remember exactly.
Mike also had a great line too in that same scene about like what did he? Yeah, I forget exactly how it went, but it ended with like, "I'm gonna put my foot through your skull" or something like that.
Turning up in the funniest moment of the week.
Yeah,
so that'll come back in a second.
Okay, sorry.
There was a good line between them two. That scene, we should have just queued that up and played the whole scene. But Mike saying, even if this guy's gonna live, I wouldn't go near him. He's a complete amateur. And Saul says, "Well, you see an amateur. I see 170 pounds of clay ready to be molded."
Yeah.
And he says, if the cancer doesn't get him, it'll be the cops or a bullet to the head, just to show how he's like, this guy is not even anywhere close to being something. But Saul saw something special about him, and he was right. But I bet he wished he made different life choices. Hey, that's probably the worst decision of the week.
Yeah, it's bad.
Him deciding to get with him. Let's get to the next one. It's the funniest.
Wait, well, hold on. You didn't let Mike do his, you terrible host.
Oh no, mine was the same one. I had the same one as Dylan.
Okay,
but thank you for having my back.
That was the funniest moment of the podcast. But let's get to the funniest moment of the week.
Hey, that's the funniest moment of the week.
Authentic laughter. That's not laugh track either. So,
hey, time out. Real quick. Robert in the chat, who's been all kinds of great comments tonight. He mentioned that Jonathan Banks was in Beverly Hills Cop. Yes, totally. He's like one of the straight cops who's on there against Axel Foley. So yeah, great call out.
I also do want to say John for Council's best line of the week. He has cancer. Let me tell you, people with cancer are bad too. Like we had talked about. That is actually a really good line. I completely agree with you. Mike, just because I stole it before, let's get your funniest moment of the week.
Well, no, I'm going to let you have that because my funniest moment of the week I mentioned earlier was Aaron Paul playing a 26-year-old at 42. That was authentic. That was so good.
How are you doing, fellow kids?
That was my funniest moment of the week.
But yeah, he says to him, he's like, when LBJ, he used to have people talk to him when he was on the toilet. And he goes, well, either I'm leaving or I'm putting my foot through your skull. I like how those are the two options. Is he's going to leave or he's going to put his foot through his skull. And he's like, you just give a little bit of physical violence threats and Saul will always cave. That's just kind of where that ends.
Hey, Mike, you're one that you brought up. Maybe you remember, again, I hate to be that guy. This interview I read with Peter Gould, but he also said two things. Like, they didn't want Jesse to say bitch. They felt like we cannot make Jesse say like, but he did say dick. Like that was their concession. He did call Mr. White a dick. And they purposely didn't de-age them. They just said, you know what, look, we all know it. You know it at home. We're not going to do some weird makeup. We're not going to digitize it. If you want to pick apart the show, go ahead. But otherwise,
if they made him look like Princess Leia on Rogue One.
No, there was definitely the move. Like what they did was the right thing to do. There was no way to do it. It was funny. I think it was the
still
watch.
Hilarious.
Yeah,
I totally agree.
I think it was the Watch podcast where Chris Ryan said like it was much easier for Bryan Cranston to go from like 50 to 6 or from 65 to 50 than it is to go from 42 to 28. Like we just look very different from 20. So I thought it was just really funny. But you're right. Like if they did any weird Scorsese, De Niro de-aging, I would have hated that. So
we would be talking about that a lot more. The scene kind of flew under because everybody was like, of course he's aged. But I think the only time it was distracting was that opening scene when he comes in and he has like a really gruff voice. I feel like if they just cut that one thing or refilm that one opening part, I was like, at first I was like, oh God, this is bad. And then next line he said, I was like, okay, actually it's not so bad. This isn't as bad as I initially thought.
What's yours, Dylan? What was your funniest?
And shout outs to John for Council said Jimmy singing Brandy, which that song reminds me of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. That's what that reminds me of or anything because that has a really big part in it. But you know, if you know, you know. If you don't know, you don't know. Let's get into the last one, which is the prediction of the week.
The prediction of the week.
Not as good as the drops on Team Hold, but they're not bad.
No, they're good. These are good drops.
Dylan, do you gotta take a shit or do you have a date? Like you forgot me on Funniest Moment. You were just barreling through these.
Wow.
Like
all right, guys, that wraps up the podcast. Thanks for everybody coming on.
I agree with John. Mine was that Jimmy singing and that whole montage was just beautiful, perfect, montage. But I really laughed at Francesca when she was like, "This place smells like a skunk's butthole." Like that made me laugh. So I quickly wrote that one down. But yeah, prediction of the week. I already said mine, so I don't really have.
The prediction of the week.
All right, now we get to our prediction of the week. Dan, why don't you take the floor on the prediction of the week?
Brace yourselves, but I think Jeff's mom is going to bust them somehow.
You think Jeff's mom's going to bust? You should have just left it at that.
She's going to burst. No, that's going to happen. I did write another one down. What did I say here? I think Bill Oakley is going to come back. I agree. Like, I don't know if he's going to necessarily defend Saul in court, but I do think, and like I said, I went online. He has a website. They made him like his own cute little website for him. So something's going to come back for sure.
It's cute.
It's cute.
I wish the Oakley thing, I think I would like that more if Francesca didn't say it. Cause like we got the billboard on the back of the park bench.
100% with you. 100%.
Right? Like I was like, oh, I'm there. I'm already there. You don't need to tell it to me.
Which makes me think he will come back.
Yeah.
They had to have him know that.
Right.
Yeah.
Because what's the point of showing him finding out about that?
Yeah.
Other than realizing that everything is turned on its head in Albuquerque.
Yeah. You know what he'll do? Maybe he will, because there was also the scene. Remember when Jimmy or Saul first was with Mr. White and Jesse, he's like, give me some money. And now I'm your lawyer. We have a client privilege. Like, I wonder if he'll do something like that with Bill, where he'll be like, hey, I'm going to pay you. Now I can tell you everything. And you're my lawyer, so you can't get me in trouble. here it is, sort of thing.
I keep feeling like we're seeing the end of characters, like them writing off, and then they come back all the time. If we see Schweikert or like Cliff
Badger?
again, I'm gonna be like, dude, let these guys have a freaking final scene, for God's sake.
You're right.
But I feel like that's the only thing that makes me think he could come back. But I still, come on. I think we're done with the Better Call Saul timeline in general, except for Kim.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think mine was going to be the like we talked about Carol Burnett being the reason that he goes down. So I'm with you on that. I wanted my prediction to be that the next episode was in Florida, but I feel like we would know that already. Like there would have been photos that would have leaked of like, what the hell is Bob Odenkirk and the gang doing in Jacksonville right now? But I love that idea of like this whole next episode where it's just Kim's POV. I think that would be awesome. So I think, did Dylan, you say, I forget who said that, Dylan or Dan, but
yeah, that was my prediction.
Yeah,
that'd be great.
I love that.
From on, like I want to see her from when they break up.
Right.
To that.
Yeah. That's not even my prediction. That's like my hope of the week. If we got that would be so good. Those episodes that they do, just like the Mike's episode in the first season, where we got his like story on there. It's just please do that. If you guys are listening, Vince Gilligan,
please do that.
Tom Stills, go. If you didn't do that, go back to the drawing board. It's not too late. It would be really good.
Yeah.
And Liquid Death would pay for the whole all the reshoots and all that kind of stuff. And the Motorola 87 headset. So yeah, anybody, we're wrapping up the show here. We got 2 episodes left, and we'll probably do like a final goodbye episode, kind of recapping the whole thing at the very, very end. But go check out our YouTube, subscribe. You can find it by looking for our links on our Twitter at BetterTalkSaul. We don't have enough followers on it because we just started using YouTube to be able to get our own URL. So a couple more of you guys, I think we can get a URL, and then that'll be easier to do the shout out. But if not, obviously still listen to iTunes, Spotify, all that kind of stuff, where the majority of you guys have it. But it's so much better when you guys are in the chat and you guys can fix all of our errors, which is half of what the chat is, and make it get less. We got way less mean emails, Dan. Yeah. While since we had people in chat to quickly correct us. Anyway, Mike, thank you for coming on.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Shout out to where people can follow you and all that stuff.
Yeah, you can follow me at Mike Zakarian on Twitter or wherever you do your social medias. And then, if you're into basketball, football, or I don't know, anything Web3 sports related, come check out Team Hold on YouTube. And we have like a morning show Monday through Friday at 9:00 and a bunch of 9 a.m. Eastern. Sorry, I know this is the West Coast bros over here, so 9 a.m. Eastern time. But yeah, Monday through Friday.
Content fucking he puts out fucking content. So if you like
the
sports,
go
check out Team Hold.
It's a good hang.
It's a good hang. Dan, where do people follow you on the internet?
You follow me on Twitter at Dan the Beast or on TikTok. What's in Dan's Rap?
Why don't you tell people what's in Dan's Rap's all about?
I go in my fridge and I eat weird food and I put it in a wrap, and it's not a bit. It's actually real. I do it and it's gross, and I'm a disgusting
He'll put
person.
like sushi and Fruit Loops and fucking mustard.
Good. Snack as a seasoning.
I love this. I'm following this right now.
He's not.
What's in Dan's Rap? No, it's fun.
What's in Dan's Rap? It's different. It's WRAP. It's not him rapping.
Right. No.
It's not him rapping. That was a failed TikTok that he tried at the beginning.
God.
Anyway, for me, you can follow me at the Dylan Schuck. That's the DYLANSCHUCK. Email us at BetterTalkSaul@gmail.com. Follow us at BetterTalkSaul on Twitter. And that's it. I'm Dylan Schuck.
I'm Dan Fields.
And I'm Mike.
And we'll see you next week.